Hello everyone. Today we will talk about scientific writing with Toulmin's argumentation pattern. We can use Toulmin's argumentation pattern in scientific writing, and we could also use Toulmin's argumentation in analyzing an argument presented in mathematics or science textbooks. And we could also use Toulmin's argumentation tools in designing lesson plans. Toulmin suggested his argumentation model based on syllogism. Syllogism is about a representative way of deduction. Before we talk about Toulmin's argumentation model, we will talk about induction, deduction, and abduction. Induction is about given a cause and an effect, and we induce a causal relationship between natural phenomena. So when you say induction, it's about based on one case and it resulted in some effect, and the second case and it also resulted in a certain effect, and there are many data or observations you could induce generalized rules. And the second one, deduction is about general to specific, which means if the premises are true, then the conclusion is necessarily true. Deduction consists of three components. It's called major premise and minor premise and conclusion. The representative argumentation of deduction or representative reasoning of deduction is syllogism. When you say when the premises are posited as true, the conclusion must also be true. An example of a syllogism is about this one. All men are mortal, and Socrates is a man. Therefore, Socrates is mortal. So in this diagram, when we say induction, it's about inducing a generalized rule. And when we say deduction, it's about based on the rule or major premise. And with a minor premise, we deduce an effect of some phenomenon. And the last one is about abduction. It's a kind of drawing out a cause of a certain effect. When you say an effect, we start from an effect, and there is an effect, and then you guess or some kind of suggest an hypothesis. Hypothesis 1, hypothesis 2, hypothesis 3, and so on. And you eliminate an impossible hypothesis. And it's not possible. And when you suggest the strongest or plausible, the most highly possible hypothesis, and when we say hypothesis, it states like if something is true, then there could be some effect. When you complete this strongest hypothesis or probable hypothesis, we started from an effect. So you can get the cause of this accident. So in summary, there is three ways of reasoning. One is induction. It's all about drawing out generalized rule. And the second one is deduction. It's about starting from the major premise and with a minor premise. And then you can deduce the result or effect. And the last one is abduction, which is about given a rule and an effect, and you abduct or drawing out a cause. So you start from an effect. So you finally reach at the cause of that effect. And based on this induction, deduction, and abduction, Toulmin used syllogism, which is suggested by Aristotle, which consists of major premise, minor premise, and conclusion. Toulmin used these three components as his first or primary. Using syllogism, Toulmin proposed his parts of his Toulmin's argumentation model, which consists of claim, or it's also called conclusion. And the second component is ground or data, observation, fact, etc. And the last one is warrant. So you can see the similarity or the matching part between Aristotle's syllogism and Toulmin's argumentation model. So there is claim which correspond to conclusion in syllogism, and there is a minor premise which is about fact or data, the starting point of an argumentation. And there is major premise which matches to or matches with warrant. It's about reasoning or connection between data and the claim in Toulmin's argumentation model. Toulmin's model consists of 6 parts. The primary part is about data, from data, and based on the data, someone says it's a conclusion or he claims something. And then there is warrant. It's about the why behind that claim. So there's a secondary part of Toulmin's argumentation model, this one, which is backing. It's another or additional warrant of someone's claim or someone's conclusion. And there is a rebuttal or some kind of objection to the claim. And there is a qualifier. As I said, these three components or these three parts are secondary parts of Toulmin's argumentation model. So let's review it again. Toulmin's argumentation model's component. The first one is claim. It's about assertion you hope to prove or say something. And the second one is data or ground or fact. Which one is the starting point of your claim or your conclusion? And there is a warrant, which is a connection between claim and data. Often the warrant is unspoken or warrant is eliminated. And the secondary parts of Toulmin's argumentation model is they consist of backing and rebuttal and qualifier. When we say argumentative writing, it's about stating a claim and a point that is being argued and backs up the claim with evidence and explains the reasoning that connect the evidence and the claim. We called this reasoning part as warrant. So what I want to say is that we already reviewed this causal relationship which connect cause and effect by the rule. And there is another claim. When Toulmin's primary parts of his argumentation consist of fact or data, and then based on the data, you claim something or you conclude something which is connected by the warrant. So these three parts are the primary component of Toulmin's argumentation. Also, Charles Sanders Peirce he proposed the three-component so-called semiotic triad in his reasoning or semiosis. Peirce, who is the one who proposed the abduction model. You remember the abductive reasoning, which starts from the effect and you propose some hypothesis, and then based on the hypothesis, you can explain the cause of the effect. That was abduction, and he also proposed this sign or semiotic model, which is composed of three components. You start from the object, or you could say this one is data, and you can connect this based on the data. You can say that data is something which is called signifier, and which is also called representative or representation of that object. And between this object and the representation or signifier, there is signified or interpretant. And based on some interpretant, you can say this object is something. Can you see the connection between the object and the representation? Or so-called in Peirce's term is representment. There is, whenever we say sign, it has two components. One is signifier or signifier in English. And when we heard or hear some signifier, we imagine some kind of a signified, the meaning represented by that signifier. So there is a connection between object and representment. And whenever there is object and representment, we input or we say some object is something based on some code. Peirce called the code as interpretant. So can you see the connection between these causal relationship and generalized rule, induction, deduction, and abduction? And the second one is Toulmin's argumentative model. And this one is about Charles Peirce. Peirce is a triad, semiotic triad. It's all corresponds. I mean, they have similarities between the component of each model. And when we say, we said that there is a connection between cause and effect, it's called the rule. And when you say data or some from fact, you claim something. There is warrant. It's matching. Warrant is a kind of a rule. Based on the warrant or reasoning, you connect fact and claim. And there is also between data and signifier or representment, there is a code, or it's also called warrant. Peirce, he called it as interpretant. Whenever you say you saw something and you call it as something, there is your own code. There is a warrant, or you could also say that there is a reasoning behind that naming or behind that interpretation. So there is three components in Toulmin's argumentation model. There is data and claim and warrant. And this is a primary components. And there is extra component, so-called secondary component, which is backing and rebuttal and qualifier. So try to remember these components. It's like a balancing. Starting from data and you go to claim, there is a warrant. There is additional warrant, which is called backing. and there is a rebuttal, and there is a qualifier. Let's look at backing. Backing is the logic and reasoning that demonstrate that a warrant is true. When you need more warrant or more backing, you can go just on and on and on, adding more warrant, second warrant, third warrant, first warrant, and so on. You can strengthen your claim. You can support your claim based on these warrants. And it's all called backing. And you need to remember rebuttal. It's one of the most important aspects of the argument, as the rebuttal acknowledges possible limitations or exception to your argument, which shows you already know the objections or exceptions of your claim. It's a so-called even though part of your argumentation. It's a recognition and response to other views. And there is a qualifier. There is a spectrum of qualifiers. You are probably true, your claim is probably true, or your claim is likely true, or your claim is unlikely true. There is a full spectrum of your claim. You can add some kind of qualifiers to your claim. So this one shows an example of writing with Toulmin's argumentation model, starting from the fact Rick has a fair skin, red hair, etc. And then you claim something. It's also called conclusion. Rick will probably get seriously sunburnt. And there is a qualifier, probably. The strength of your claim. And there is a warrant. Why is that? Which connected between fact and conclusion. And there is more warrant, which is called backing, and there is a rebuttal, which acknowledges opponent or another position's claim. Someone could say that, but still my claim is true based on the warrant. And this one is another example of sample writing with Toulmin's argumentation model. Data says teachers are professionals, so teachers should not use profane language because of, based on this kind of warrant. Warrant 1, warrant 2, and this one is reservation, so-called rebuttal. And this one is qualifier, certainty of your claim. Okay, then based on Toulmin's argumentation model, we could use Toulmin's argumentation model to analyze an argument presented in newspaper article or presented in science textbooks. So this one shows an example how to analyze some writing presented in textbook using Toulmin's argumentation model. Try to summarize any essay or news articles and then try to locate data, claim, warrant. Warrant 1, the second warrant, and the backing, and the qualifier, and the final conclusion. And in addition to your claim or your conclusion, try to locate some rebuttal. It's also called reservation. Another way to use Toulmin's argumentation model is analyzing or writing your own essay using Toulmin's components in your writing. So this one is the example showing how to write argumentative writing using Toulmin's model. So try to provide this component in your writing so that you can strengthen your writing or your claim. Okay, the last part of ways of using Toulmin's argumentation is about designing your science or mathematics lesson plans. This one shows the component of Toulmin's argumentation model, which the topic of this lesson is Hubble's law and the expanding universe. You can see all these components of Toulmin's argumentation. You are starting from the data and you connect to the claim, and based on what? Which is called warrant. The second warrant is called backing, and there could rebuttal, reservation, and there is a qualifier. When you say we observe some kind of red shift increases as the distance of the outer galaxy increases, based on this data, we can claim that the universe is expanding, so-called expanding universe, because the more distant galaxies increase the redshift, the faster the distant galaxies move away, so-called Hubble's law. As a teacher, you provide a bridge, or sometimes it's called stepping stone or scaffolding. You provide this bridge from data to the claim. Without this warrant or backing, the reasoning behind the data and the claim, students memorize the fact and the claim without knowing why that phenomenon happens. So the role of a teacher is to providing this warrant, backing, or it could also call the rule behind the causal relationship, or it's also called code in sociological writing. So teacher needed to provide any kinds of stepping stone or warrant behind the scene. It's the best way, or one of the best way of using Toulmin's argumentation model. The more the teacher provide warrants, the easier students get the lesson. They can connect data and the claim using this warrant, so that they don't need to memorize data and the claim without knowing why that phenomenon happens. So this is the 3 ways of using Toulmin's argumentation model. Thank you.